Jake Morrison pressed his face against the small window of his dying ship and watched the lights of Kepler's haven grow larger. The trading station looked like a massive metal flower floating in the darkness of space. Its petals were actually docking bays and living quarters for thousands of different aliens from across the galaxy. His ship shook and made a grinding noise that meant the engines were about to give up completely. Jake had been pushing the old transport vessel for 3 years now, fixing it with whatever scrap metal he could find and hoping it would last just one more jump. Today, that hope had finally run out. The communication system crackled to life. "Unknown vessel, this is Kepler's Haven Traffic Control. State your business and prepare for inspection." Jake grabbed the microphone with his gloved hand. His power armor was so old and beaten up that the gloves had holes in them. "This is Captain Jake Morrison requesting emergency docking. My engines are failing and I need repairs." There was a pause. Then the voice came back, sounding bored. "Docking Bay 7. You'll pay standard rates plus emergency fees. Don't cause trouble, human." Jake smiled sadly at the way the alien said human like it was a bad word. In the 3 years since he left Earth, he had gotten used to that tone. Most aliens thought humans were just dumb newcomers who had gotten lucky enough to discover faster-than-light travel. They saw humans as weak and unimportant. His ship limped into the docking bay with a series of loud bangs and hisses. Steam poured out of the engine compartment as Jake shut down all the systems. He sat in his pilot's chair for a moment, looking around at the small cabin that had been his home for so long. The walls were covered with patches where he had fixed holes from meteor strikes and pirate attacks. The floor was stained with oil and coolant from a dozen different repairs. Jake stood up slowly. His power armor was heavy, even with the servo motors helping him move. The armor had once been bright blue with the Earth Defense Force logo on the chest. Now it was mostly rust-colored metal with patches of different colors where he had welded on new pieces. The helmet had a crack across the visor that he had sealed with some kind of alien glue he bought on the station 3 months ago. He walked to the airlock and cycled it open. The air that rushed in smelled like a mixture of ozone, cooking food, and engine fuel. It was the smell of a busy space station where hundreds of different species lived and worked together. Jake stepped onto the docking platform and immediately felt the stares. A group of tall, green-skinned aliens were loading cargo nearby. They stopped their work to look at him and started talking in their own language. Jake caught a few words he recognized. They were making jokes about his rusty armor and wondering if he was some kind of beggar. A short, fat alien with 4 arms and gray skin waddled over to him. This was a Bolian Jake knew. They ran most of the business dealings on stations like this one. "You Captain Morrison?" the Bolian asked in heavily accented English. "That's me," Jake replied. "I am Grick. I handle docking fees and repairs. Your ship is in very bad condition. It will cost 5,000 credits to fix the engines and another 2,000 for the hull patches." Jake's heart sank. He had maybe 300 credits to his name. "I don't have that kind of money right now. Is there some kind of work I can do to earn it?" Grick laughed, a sound like a pig snorting. "Work? Look at you, human. That armor is held together with tape and hope. Who would hire someone who can't even maintain his own equipment?" Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm a good pilot and know how to fight. There must be something." "Maybe," Grick said, looking Jake up and down. "There are always people who need muscle for dangerous jobs. But most of them want someone who looks professional. You look like you've been living in a garbage dump." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew Grick was right. His armor did look terrible. The servo motors whined when he moved, and he could feel loose connections sparking in the chest plate. He had been fixing it for so long that he had forgotten what it looked like to other people. "I'll ask around," Jake said. "Maybe someone needs a pilot who doesn't care about pretty ships." "Good luck, human," Grick said, already walking away. "You'll need it." Jake picked up his small bag of belongings and left the docking bay. The main corridor of Kepler's haven was like walking through a canyon made of metal. The ceiling was so high that he could barely see it, and the walls were covered with signs in dozens of different languages. Aliens of every shape and size walked past him, some floating, some crawling, some walking on legs like his own. Most of them ignored him, but Jake noticed the ones who didn't. A group of insect-like aliens with shiny black shells clicked their mandibles when they saw him. Two aliens that looked like walking trees made rustling sounds that Jake was pretty sure were laughter. Even the small, furry creatures that ran. Maintenance on the station seemed to avoid him. Jake found a directory screen and looked for the employment section. There were jobs for engineers, pilots, guards, and laborers. But when he touched the screen to apply for anything, a message appeared. Error. Applicant does not meet minimum equipment standards. He tried 3 more job postings and got the same message each time. The station's computer system was programmed to reject anyone whose equipment didn't meet certain standards. Jake's armor was so old and patched that the system thought he was homeless. Frustrated, Jake decided to walk around the station and look for work in person. He passed shops selling strange foods, weapons, and technology he had never seen before. The deeper he went into the station, the more rundown it became. Here, the lights were dimmer and the air smelled worse. This was where the poor aliens lived, the ones who couldn't afford better quarters. Jake heard shouting coming from up ahead. He walked faster, his armor servos whining with each step, and came to a large open area filled with people. In the center of the crowd, someone was selling something on a raised platform. Jake pushed through the crowd to get a better look. What he saw made his blood run cold. On the platform was a young alien girl, maybe 16 years old if she had been human. Her skin was pale blue with silver patterns that seemed to move like living metal. Her large eyes were the color of deep space, and they held a mixture of fear and defiance. She was in chains. Jake had heard about slave markets in the Outer Rim, but he had never seen one. Earth had banned slavery centuries ago, but out here in the wild territories, different rules applied. The alien running the auction was tall and ugly, with too many teeth and eyes that moved independently of each other. This is a prime specimen, the auctioneer was saying. Young, healthy, and from a species known for their special abilities. The bidding starts at 10,000 credits. Jake felt sick. The girl couldn't be much older than his sister back on Earth. She stood straight despite her chains, looking out at the crowd with dignity that made Jake's heart ache. He didn't have 10,000 credits. He barely had enough money to buy a decent meal. But as he watched the aliens in the crowd start to bid on the girl's freedom, Jake knew he had to do something, even if it meant giving up the only thing of value he had left. Jake pushed through the crowd of aliens to get closer to the platform. The girl on the stage was unlike any alien he had ever seen. Her blue skin seemed to glow with a soft inner light, and the silver patterns that covered her arms and face moved like water flowing over stone. Even chained and standing before a crowd of buyers, she held herself like royalty. The auctioneer was a Hurgan, Jake realized. He had met their kind before during his time in the Defense Force. They were merchants and traders, but not the honest kind. Hurgans would sell anything if the price was right, including people. This one was tall and thin with green-gray skin and multiple eyes that could look in different directions at once. "Look at these markings," the Hurgan said, pointing at the girl's silver patterns. "Pure Zephyrian bloodline." "Do you know what that means?" A voice from the crowd shouted, "It means she can channel cosmic energy." "Exactly right," the auctioneer replied with a nasty grin. "1 drop of her blood can power a small ship for months. Her people are living batteries, and this one is young and strong. She could work for decades before burning out." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. The way the Hurgan talked about the girl made her sound like a piece of equipment instead of a living being. The crowd around him was getting excited, and he could hear aliens discussing how much they were willing to pay. "Now," the auctioneer continued, "I should tell you this is no ordinary Zephyrian. She was captured from a diplomatic ship 3 days ago. This is Princess Lyra of the Zephyrian High Council." The crowd exploded into excited chatter. Jake heard someone say that the Zephyrian royal family had been searching for her. Another voice mentioned that her people would pay anything to get her back. But Jake also heard darker comments about what certain buyers would do with a Zephyrian. Princess Lyra stood quietly through all of this, but Jake could see her hands trembling slightly. She was scared, but she was trying not to show it. Her large eyes moved across the crowd, and for a moment they met Jake's. Something passed between them in that instant, a recognition that made Jake's chest tighten. The bidding started at 10,000 credits. A fat alien with tentacles for arms raised his hand. 15,000, he called out. 20,000, came another voice. Jake looked around at the bidders. Most of them were the kind of people who made their money from other people's suffering. He saw slave traders, pirates, and worse. In the back of the crowd, a group of aliens in expensive clothes were whispering to each other. Jake had heard about people like them. Wealthy collectors who bought rare aliens to keep as pets or trophies. The price kept going up. 25,000, 30,000, 40,000. Jake's entire ship wasn't worth half that much, even when it was new. 50,000 credits, called out a voice that made Jake's blood run cold. He turned to see a tall figure in a black cloak standing at the edge of the crowd. The figure's face was hidden, but Jake could smell the scent of death and decay coming from that direction. Whatever was under that cloak wasn't entirely alive. Princess Lyra saw the cloaked figure too, and Jake watched all the color drain from her blue skin. She knew who that was, and she was terrified. 50,000 going once, the auctioneer said, his multiple eyes gleaming with greed. Jake's mind raced. He had to do something, but what? He didn't have 50,000 credits. He didn't have 5,000 credits. All he had was his rusty armor, his broken ship, and the clothes on his back. Going twice, the auctioneer continued, the cloaked figure stepped forward slightly, and Jake caught a glimpse of what was underneath the hood. It wasn't a face at all, but a skull covered in rotting flesh. The thing wasn't alive in any normal sense of the word. Jake had heard stories about the Necron collective, beings who had died long ago but refused to stay dead. They collected living creatures to experiment on, trying to find a way to return to true life. Princess Lyra would be tortured in ways Jake couldn't even imagine. Wait, Jake heard himself say. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried across the crowd. Conversation stopped, and dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. The auctioneer's multiple eyes focused on Jake. What did you say, human? Jake stepped forward, his armor creaking and whining with each movement. I said, wait. I want to make a bid. Laughter erupted from the crowd. Someone shouted, look at him. He looks like he sleeps in a junkyard. Human. The auctioneer said with amusement, this auction is for serious buyers only. Do you have 50,000 credits? No, Jake admitted. But I have something else. More laughter from the crowd. Jake ignored it and kept walking toward the platform. Princess Lyra was watching him with wide eyes as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. What could you possibly have that would interest me? The auctioneer asked. Jake stopped in front of the platform and looked up at the Hurgan. My armor. The laughter got louder. Someone shouted, that pile of rust isn't worth 50 credits, let alone 50,000. But Princess Lyra was studying Jake more carefully now. Her eyes moved over his armor, taking in details that the crowd had missed. The silver patterns on her skin began to glow brighter, and Jake saw her expression change from confusion to something like recognition. Your armor? The auctioneer repeated. Human, I've seen better equipment in salvage yards. Look closer, Princess Lyra said quietly. Her voice was soft, but it carried clearly in the sudden silence. Look at the scorch marks on his chest plate. The auctioneer's eyes focused on Jake's armor. Now that the girl had pointed it out, Jake could see the aliens studying the burn patterns on the metal. The marks were old, but they told a story to anyone who knew how to read them. Those are plasma burns, Princess Lyra continued. From Korthek. Weapons, and see the pattern of impacts on his shoulder and arm? That's from Vrex crystal shards? This human fought in the Siege of Proxima. Jake was surprised she knew about the battle. The Siege of Proxima had been a human conflict defending the Centauri colonies from an invasion by the Korthek Empire. Most aliens didn't care about human wars, but this girl seemed to know the details. The crowd had gotten quieter. Some of the aliens were looking at Jake with new interest. The siege of Proxima had been a turning point in human history, the first time Earth's forces had defeated a major galactic power in open battle. "He was there," Princess Lyra said, her voice growing stronger. "He fought against the Korthic when they tried to enslave the Centauri colonies. Look at his armor, really look at it." Jake felt uncomfortable with all the attention, but he stood still while the auctioneer and crowd examined his equipment. He had never thought much about the battle damage on his armor. It was just part of the history he carried with him. "The human fought in that war," someone in the crowd said. "My cousin was at Proxima. He said the humans fought like demons. They saved 3 billion Centauri lives." Another voice added. The auctioneer was still looking at Jake's armor, but his expression had changed. He was no longer seeing a piece of junk. He was seeing a piece of history. "Interesting," the Hurgan said slowly, "but history doesn't pay for slaves, human. Do you have credits or not?" Jake looked up at Princess Lyra. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Then he looked at the cloaked figure in the crowd, still waiting to claim his prize. "I don't have credits," Jake said, "but I'm willing to trade my armor for her freedom." The crowd erupted again, but this time the laughter was mixed with other sounds. Some aliens were arguing about whether Jake's armor was worth anything. Others were discussing the significance of the Proxima battle. Princess Lyra stepped forward as far as her chains would allow. "You would give up your armor for a stranger?" Jake met her eyes. "Yes, why?" Jake thought about his sister back on Earth. He thought about all the innocent people he had seen suffer in his 3 years wandering the galaxy. He thought about what the cloaked figure would do to this girl if he won the auction. "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake said simply. The auctioneer stared at Jake for a long moment. His multiple eyes moved in different directions, some looking at Jake's armor while others watched the crowd's reaction. The Hurgan's thin lips curved into what might have been a smile. "You want to trade that rusted junk for a Zephyrian princess?" the auctioneer asked. "Human, I have seen many foolish things in my years, but this might be the most foolish of all." The crowd roared with laughter again. Jake heard someone shout, "The human has lost his mind." Another voice called out, "Maybe he hit his head too many times in battle." But Jake noticed that not everyone was laughing. Some of the older aliens in the crowd were studying his armor more carefully. A few were whispering to each other, and Jake caught fragments of their conversations. They were talking about human courage, about the stories they had heard from Proxima, about the way humans fought when they were protecting others. Princess Lyra had not taken her eyes off Jake. The silver patterns on her skin were glowing brighter now, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded Jake of a heartbeat. She seemed to be seeing something in him that others missed. "The armor is worthless," the cloaked figure said. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through a graveyard. "I bid 55,000 credits." The auctioneer's eyes lit up with greed. 55,000 from our mysterious buyer, going once ... "Wait," Princess Lyra said. Her voice was stronger now, filled with an authority that made even the auctioneer pause. "I want to examine the human's armor more closely." "This is an auction, not a museum," the auctioneer replied. "You don't get to examine anything, slave." Princess Lyra's eyes flashed with anger. "I am Princess Lyra of the Zephyrian High Council. My people have been allies to many races for over 1,000 years. We have fought alongside the Centauri, the Altarians, and yes, even the humans. I know the value of what I see." The crowd had grown quiet again. Even among slavers and pirates, few people were willing to completely ignore a member of the Zephyrian royal family. Her people were too powerful and too well connected. "What do you see, princess?" asked an old alien near the front of the crowd. Jake recognized him as a Centauri, one of the people his own forces had saved at Proxima. Princess Lyra looked directly at Jake. "I see armor that has been to hell and back. Those burn marks on his chest plate are from a Korthic plasma cannon. The only way to get marks like that is to stand directly in front of one while it fires." Jake remembered that day. His squad had been pinned down by Korthic forces, and civilians were trapped in a building behind them. The plasma cannon had been cutting through their cover, and someone had to get close enough to destroy it. Jake had volunteered. The scoring. On his helmet, Princess Lyra continued, that's from Vrex crystal shards. They only use those weapons when they're fighting to the death. And see the way his left shoulder plate is dented? That's from a Korthak warhammer. The Centauri in the crowd was nodding. She's right, I was at Proxima. I saw humans take hits like that and keep fighting. The human's armor tells a story, Princess Lyra said. It tells the story of someone who stands between danger and innocent people. Someone who takes the hits, so others don't have to. Jake felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He had never thought of himself as a hero. He had just done what needed to be done like any soldier would. Pretty words, the auctioneer said, but words don't pay for slaves. The armor is still worthless scrap metal. Is it? Princess Lyra asked. Human, tell me about Proxima. Tell me about the day you got those burns. Jake didn't want to talk about it. The memories of that battle were painful, full of friends who hadn't come home. But something in Princess Lyra's eyes made him answer. The Korthak had civilians trapped. In a housing complex, Jake said quietly. They were using them as human shields while they set up their plasma cannons. My squad was supposed to wait for reinforcements, but the civilians didn't have time. So what did you do? Princess Lyra asked. I went in alone, Jake said. Drew their fire while my squad got the civilians out. Took a direct hit from there. Main cannon, but my armor held long enough. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the cloaked figure seemed to be listening. How many civilians? Princess Lyra asked. 237, Jake said. Mostly children. An old Centauri woman in the crowd made a sound that might have been crying. My granddaughter was in that building, she said. She's alive because of humans like you. The auctioneer was getting impatient. Enough of this. The auction continues. 55,000 credits going once? The armor is not worthless, Princess Lyra said loudly. It's a relic of the siege of Proxima. Museums would pay thousands of credits for authentic human battle armor from that campaign. Jake blinked in surprise. He had never thought about his armor being worth anything to collectors or museums. Even if that's true, the auctioneer said, it's not worth 55,000 credits. No, Princess Lyra agreed. But it's worth something else. It's worth respect. She turned to face the crowd. Despite her chains, she stood tall and proud. This human is offering to trade the only thing of value he owns to save a stranger. He's willing to give up his protection, his history, his identity, as a soldier to help someone he doesn't even know. The silver patterns on her skin were pulsing faster now, and Jake could see that other Zephyrians in the crowd were responding to her somehow. Their own markings were starting to glow. That armor represents sacrifice, Princess Lyra continued. It represents the willingness to stand up to evil even when you're outnumbered and outgunned. It represents the human spirit that my people have learned to respect. The cloaked figure stepped forward. Enough talk, I'd bid 60,000 credits. But the auctioneer was hesitating now. Jake could see the Hergen's multiple eyes darting between the crowd, Princess Lyra, and the cloaked figure. The mood in the room had changed. What had started as a simple slave auction was becoming something else. I accept the human's offer, Princess Lyra said clearly. You don't get to accept anything, the auctioneer snapped. You're the merchandise. I am Princess Lyra of the Zephyrian High Council, she replied. Under galactic law, I have the right to choose my own fate if a suitable champion offers to represent me in trial by combat. The crowd erupted in surprised voices. Jake had never heard of this law, but apparently many of the aliens had. Trial by combat? The auctioneer asked. What are you talking about? It's an old law, the Centauri woman explained. From the days when the Galactic Council was first formed. If a member of a royal family is being held illegally, they can call for a champion to fight for their freedom. This is a legal slave auction, the auctioneer protested. Is it? Princess Lyra asked. Did you get permission from the Zephyrian High Council to sell me? Did you file the proper paperwork with the Galactic Trade Commission? The auctioneer's face went pale. Jake could see that Princess Lyra had hit a nerve. I didn't think so, she continued. This is kidnapping and illegal slavery. Under galactic law, I have the right to call for a champion. The cloaked figure made a sound like grinding bones. The girl is clever, but trial by combat requires 2 willing participants. I do not accept. Then I do, said a new voice. Jake turned to see a massive alien pushing through the crowd. It was a Korthak, one of the same species that had attacked Proxima. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick armor plating covering its body and weapons built into its arms. I am Thrak the Destroyer, the Korthak announced. I fought at Proxima. I lost many warriors to human tactics. I would be honored to face this human in combat. Jake felt his heart sink. He was a good soldier, but without his armor he was just a human. The Korthak was a natural killing machine. I accept your challenge, Jake said anyway. Princess Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. Human, you don't understand. Without your armor, you can't possibly win. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But you said it yourself. Sometimes you have to stand up to evil even when you're outnumbered and outgunned. The auctioneer was looking around frantically. The simple slave auction had turned into a legal challenge that could shut down his entire operation. Fine, Hergen said. Trial by combat it is. But if the human loses, the girl goes to the highest bidder. And if I win? Jake asked. Then you get the girl, and your armor stays on your body where it belongs. Jake nodded and began to remove his helmet. Then let's get this over with. Jake pulled his helmet off and set it down on the ground. The crowd pressed closer, forming a rough circle around him and the massive Korthak warrior. Thrak the Destroyer was even more frightening up close. His natural armor looked like black metal, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light of the market area. Human, Thrak rumbled, his voice like rocks grinding together. At Proxima, your people fought with honor. I will give you a quick death. Thanks, Jake said dryly as he began removing his chest plate. That's very thoughtful of you. Princess Lyra watched Jake with growing concern. Human, please reconsider. Korthak warriors are bred for battle. They have natural weapons and armor that you cannot match. Jake smiled at her as he struggled with the clasps on his chest armor. My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been in worse situations than this. When? Princess Lyra asked. Well, Jake said, thinking about it, there was that time on Kepler station when I had to fight 6 pirates with nothing but a wrench. And the incident on Vega Prime where I took on a whole gang of smugglers because they were selling drugs to kids. The crowd murmured with interest. Jake's casual attitude was not what they had expected from someone about to face a Korthak in single combat. Thrak snorted with what might have been amusement. You have courage, human, but courage will not save you from my claws. Jake's chest plate came free with a loud clank. As he lifted it over his head, something strange happened. Princess Lyra gasped and took a step backward, her chains rattling. The silver patterns on her skin began glowing so brightly that they cast shadows on the ground around her. What is it? Jake asked, concerned that she was hurt. Princess Lyra stared at his chest with wide eyes. Your skin, she whispered. Look at your skin. Jake looked down at himself. He couldn't see anything unusual. His chest was covered with old scars from years of fighting, but that was nothing new. What about it? But other people in the crowd were starting to notice something. A group of tall, pale aliens near the back suddenly fell to their knees. Jake recognized them as Altarians, a very old and wise species that rarely showed emotion about anything. The marks, one of the Altarians said in a shaking voice. He bears the marks of the ancients. Jake frowned. What marks? I don't see any marks. Princess Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. Human, you cannot see them because you are human. But to those of us with enhanced sight, your skin is covered with symbols that are older than most civilizations. More aliens in the crowd were falling to their knees now. Even some of the rough pirates and slavers looked shocked. Thrak the Destroyer had stopped advancing and was staring at Jake with a mixture of confusion and something that might have been fear. What kind of symbols? Jake asked, still confused. An ancient-looking alien with crystal growths on his head pushed through the crowd. Jake had never seen his species before, but the way others moved aside suggested he was very important. "Those are Forerunner markings," the crystal alien said in a voice like singing glass. "I am Elder Zix of the First Tribunal. One have studied the Ancient Ones for 800 years. What you carry on your skin should not exist." Jake was getting more confused by the minute. "I don't understand." "What are Forerunners?" Elder Zix studied Jake carefully. "The Forerunners were the first intelligent species in this galaxy. They built wonders that we still cannot understand and then vanished millions of years ago. They left behind only ruins and legends. And symbols," Princess Lyra added. "Sacred symbols that appear in their temples and on their artifacts. Symbols that are supposed to have great power." Jake started removing his arm guards. As each piece of armor came off, more markings became visible to those who could see them. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the station. Aliens were running from all over Kepler's haven to see the human with ancient markings. "But how did I get these markings?" Jake asked. "I would remember something like that." "Tell us about your missions," Princess Lyra said. "Tell us about any time you encountered something strange or unexplained." Jake thought back through his years of service and wandering. There had been many strange things, but one memory stood out. About 4 years ago, I was on a rescue mission in the Void Sector. There was a research ship that had gone missing. "What kind of research?" Elder Zix asked. "They were studying some kind of energy field around an old planet. The planet was dead, nothing but ruins and rocks, but the energy readings were off the charts." The crowd was completely silent now. Even Thrak had forgotten about the combat and was listening intently. "When I found the research ship, it was drifting dead in space," Jake continued. "The crew was alive but unconscious. I had to go aboard to rescue them." "What did you find?" Princess Lyra asked. "The strangest thing," Jake said. "The ship's computers were all scrambled, showing symbols I had never seen before. And there was this humming sound like the ship itself was singing. I managed to get the crew out, but I was exposed to whatever energy field they had been studying." "Elder?" Zix nodded slowly. "The medical reports from that mission. Do you have them?" "Earth's medical corps checked me out afterward," Jake said. "They said I was fine. A little radiation exposure, but nothing serious." "They would not have been able to detect Forerunner energy," Elder Zix explained. "Human science is still too primitive. But the energy would have marked you, changed you in ways that only become visible to other species." Jake pulled off his remaining armor pieces. By now, his entire body was apparently covered with glowing symbols that he couldn't see, but that had the entire crowd in a state of shock. Some aliens were praying, others were taking pictures, and a few were trying to get close enough to touch him. "This is impossible," the auctioneer said. His multiple eyes were darting around frantically. "This is just a human, a nobody. He can't be some kind of ancient prophet." The ancients chose their servants carefully," Elder Zix said. "They would not have marked him without reason." Thrak the Destroyer was backing away now. "I cannot fight one who bears the marks of the first ones," he said. "It would be sacrilege." The cloaked figure that had been bidding on Princess Lyra was also retreating. Whatever was under that who clearly wanted nothing to do with someone marked by the Forerunners, Jake stood in the center of the crowd wearing only his basic clothes, still not able to see what everyone else was looking at. "So what does this mean exactly?" "It means," Princess Lyra said, "that you are probably the most important person in the galaxy right now." "But I don't want to be important," Jake protested. "I just wanted to save you from that creepy guy in the cloak." "Princess." Lyra smiled for the first time since he had seen her. "And that, Jake Morrison, is exactly why the ancients chose you." The auctioneer was looking around desperately. His slave auction had turned into some kind of religious event, and he was losing control of the situation. "This doesn't change anything," he said. "The girl is still my property." But his words were drowned out by the sound of hundreds of aliens calling out protests. Jake heard voices in dozens of languages all saying the same thing, that it would be wrong to enslave someone under the protection of one marked by the ancients. "The auction is over," Elder Zix announced. "Release the princess immediately, or—" face the consequences of angering every major civilization in the galaxy. The auctioneer looked around at the crowd. He could see that he was outnumbered and outmatched. With shaking hands, he pulled out a key and unlocked Princess Lyra's chains. Princess Lyra rubbed her wrists where the metal had chafed them, then walked over to Jake. She reached out and touched his arm, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation where her fingers made contact. "You saved me," she said simply. "We're not done yet," Jake replied, looking around at the crowd. "How do we get out of here?" Princess Lyra smiled again. "Jake Morrison, I don't think getting out is going to be the problem. I think the problem is going to be that everyone in the galaxy is going to want to meet you." Jake looked down at his armor scattered on the ground, then at the hundreds of aliens staring at him like he was some kind of miracle. "This is going to be complicated, isn't it?" "Very complicated," Princess Lyra agreed, "but also wonderful." Jake began picking up his armor pieces. Well, I guess being normal was getting boring anyway. As he gathered his equipment, Jake noticed that some of the aliens in the crowd were still kneeling. Others were reaching out as if they wanted to touch him. A few were speaking into communication devices, probably calling their home planets to report what they had seen. Jake Morrison, the wandering ex-soldier who just wanted to help a girl in trouble, had become something much bigger than he ever imagined, and as Princess Lyra stood beside him, her silver markings still glowing with excitement, he realized that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. Within an hour, Kepler's haven was in complete chaos. Word about Jake Morrison had spread through the station's communication networks and beyond. Ships were arriving from every direction, carrying representatives from dozens of different species. The small trading station that usually saw maybe 50 visitors per day was suddenly hosting thousands. Jake sat in a private meeting room that station security had provided for his protection. His armor was piled on a chair beside him, and Princess Lyra sat across the table, still wearing her simple prisoner's clothes. Through the window they could see crowds of aliens gathering in the main corridors, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the human with the ancient markings. "This is insane," Jake said, watching a group of religious leaders from 3 different species arguing about who had the right to speak with him first. "Yesterday I was nobody. Today apparently I'm some kind of prophet." Princess Lyra smiled. "The universe has a strange sense of humor. But Jake, you need to understand how important this is. No one has seen new Forerunner markings in over 1,000,000 years. Most people thought the ancients were just legends. But what do the markings mean?" Jake asked. "What am I supposed to do with them?" Before Princess Lyra could answer, the door chimed. Elder Zix entered, followed by a tall woman in an elegant uniform that Jake didn't recognize. "Jake Morrison," Elder Zix said, "I would like you to meet Ambassador Elena Cross of the Earth Diplomatic Corps." Jake stood up in surprise. He hadn't expected to see another human, especially not one who looked so official. Ambassador Cross was middle-aged with graying hair and the kind of confident bearing that came from years of dealing with alien governments. "Captain Morrison," Ambassador Cross said, shaking his hand. "I've been reading your service record, quite impressive." "Thank you, ma'am," Jake replied automatically. "But I'm not a captain anymore. I resigned from the Defense Force 3 years ago." "I know," Ambassador Cross said. "And now I'm here to ask you to come back." Jake blinked. "Come back? Why?" "Ambassador." Cross gestured toward the window where they could see even more ships arriving. "Because in the past hour, every major government in the galaxy has contacted Earth demanding to know about you. The Centauri want to give you citizenship. The Altarians are offering to make you a member of their High Council. 3 different species want to declare you their religious leader." "That's ridiculous," Jake said. "I'm just a guy who got exposed to some weird energy." "No," Princess Lyra said quietly, "you're much more than that. Jake, the Forerunners didn't just mark random people. They chose their servants very carefully, based on character and destiny." Elder Zix nodded. "The markings appear to respond to acts of sacrifice and courage. The energy field you encountered 4 years ago was probably dormant until you proved yourself worthy." "Worthy of what?" Jake asked. "We don't know yet. Ambassador Cross admitted. But every's an archaeologist in. The galaxy is trying to figure it out. What we do know is that you've become the most politically important human in history overnight. Jake sat back down heavily. I don't want to be politically important. I just want to help people. And that, Princess Lyra said, is exactly why. You were chosen. The door chimed again and a station security officer entered. Excuse me, but there's a Zephyrian fleet approaching the station. They're requesting permission to escort Princess Lyra home. Princess Lyra's face lit up. My people found me. That's not all, the security officer continued. There's also an Earth Defense Force squadron, an Altarian diplomatic ship, and what looks like a Centauri research vessel. Oh, and something calling itself the First Tribunal wants to land on the station to examine Mr. Morrison. Jake put his head in his hands. This is getting out of control. Ambassador Cross sat down beside him. Jake, I know this is overwhelming, but you have an opportunity here to change things for the better. Earth has always been seen as a minor player in galactic politics. With you representing us, we could finally have a real voice. I don't know anything about politics, Jake protested. You don't need to, Princess Lyra said. You just need to be yourself. The person who was willing to trade his armor to save a stranger. The person who stood up to pirates and slavers because it was right. Elder Zix leaned forward. The Forerunners left many ruins throughout the galaxy. Temples, research stations, libraries full of knowledge that we cannot access. But someone with their markings might be able to unlock those secrets. What kind of secrets? Jake asked. Medical technology that could cure diseases we've never been able to treat, Elder Zix explained. Energy sources that could power entire star systems without pollution. Maybe even answers about what happened to the Forerunners themselves. Jake looked around the room at the faces watching him. Ambassador Cross was hopeful, Elder Zix was excited about the possibilities, and Princess Lyra was looking at him with something that might have been admiration. What if I mess it up? Jake asked. What if I'm not good enough for whatever this is supposed to be? You won't mess it up, Princess Lyra said firmly. Jake, in the few hours I've known you, you've shown more courage and integrity than most. People show in a lifetime. You didn't ask for anything in return when you offered to save me. You didn't even hesitate. The communication panel on the wall beeped. Mr. Morrison, came the station commander's voice. The Zephyrian fleet commander is requesting permission to speak with you. Jake sighed and pressed the reply button. Put him through. The wall screen activated, showing a Zephyrian male in military uniform. His silver markings were arranged in complex patterns that suggested high rank. Human Jake Morrison, the Zephyrian said. I am Fleet Commander Wraith of the Zephyrian Royal Navy. You have saved my daughter's life. Jake glanced at Princess Lyra, who was smiling proudly. Just doing what anyone would do, sir. No, Commander. Wraith said seriously. Most beings would not have risked themselves for a stranger. The Zephyrian people are in your debt. Name your reward, and it shall be yours. I don't need a reward, Jake said. Just seeing Princess Lyra safe is enough, Commander Wraith's expression softened. My daughter told me about your markings. She says you bear the signs of the Ancient Ones. So everyone keeps telling me, Jake replied, though I still can't see them myself. That is because the Ancients wanted their chosen ones to remain humble, Commander Wraith explained. But Jake Morrison, if you truly carry their marks, then you have a destiny greater than any of us can imagine. Princess Lyra stood up. Father, I want to stay with Jake. He's going to need help understanding what he's become. Lyra, you have duties to your people, Commander Wraith said. And my people will be better served if I help the one chosen by the Ancients, she replied. This is bigger than politics or royal duties. Jake looked at Princess Lyra in surprise. You want to come with me, but you're a princess. You have a whole planet to think about. Jake, she said, you saved me when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. The least I can do is help you navigate this new life you've been given. Ambassador. Cross cleared her throat. If I may make a suggestion? Earth is prepared to offer you a new commission in the diplomatic corps. You would have the resources and authority to explore these forerunner sites while representing humanity's interests. Jake thought about it. A month ago, he had been a drifter, with a broken ship and rusty armor. Now he was being offered a chance to represent his entire species and possibly unlock the secrets of an ancient civilization. "What about my freedom?" Jake asked. "I left the military because I wanted to make my own choices." "You would still make your own choices," Ambassador Cross assured him. "Earth isn't asking you to follow orders. We're asking you to be yourself, but with official backing and resources." Jake looked at Princess Lyra. "And you really want to come along for this?" "Try to stop me," she said with a grin. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see dozens of ships from different species, all waiting to see what he would decide. Somewhere out there were ancient ruins holding secrets that could change the galaxy. And here in this room were people offering to help him discover those secrets. "All right," Jake said finally. "I'll do it, but I have conditions." "Name them," Ambassador Cross said. "First, Princess Lyra comes with me as an equal partner, not as a subordinate. Second, we share any discoveries with all the species, not just Earth. And third, if I ever think this job is making me into someone I don't want to be, I walk away." Ambassador Cross smiled, agreed. Princess Lyra walked over to stand beside Jake at the window. "So what do we do first?" Jake picked up his battered helmet and looked at it. A few hours ago, it had been all the protection he had in a hostile galaxy. Now, it seemed like a relic from a simpler time. "First," Jake said, "I think I need to get some new armor. This old stuff has served its purpose." "The old armor brought you this far," Princess Lyra pointed out. "True," Jake agreed. "But I have a feeling where we're going. I'm going to need protection against things a lot stranger than plasma cannons and crystal shards." As Jake Morrison looked out at the fleet of ships waiting for him, he realized that his life as a wandering ex-soldier was over. But his life as something much more important was just beginning. And beside him stood a princess who had chosen to trade her comfortable life for the chance to explore the unknown.